Hello and welcome to episode 343 of the Stacey West Podcast. It's the first episode we've ever recorded where the episode number could also be a reasonably used football tactic, 343. So we're getting a little bit long in the tooth. As many of you will know by now, my name is Gary. I've been a host on this show for most of the 343 episodes aside from when I dip out. And Mr. Lamming joined us around episode 200 and he's joining me tonight. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm a little bit under the weather, Gaz. Sadly. I'm not feeling 100%. I'm hoping not to be poorly for Christmas, but it is quite a tradition in my household for me to be ill for the big day. So,
well,
not feeling 100%.
Full stop for you to be ill.
Yeah, fair enough. Can't really argue with that, can we?
No,
but apart
not
from
really.
that, I'm all right. I've been a busy boy today. I've basically been Santa today, delivering presents here, there, and everywhere around the county. But all good. Feeling significantly more cheerful and positive than I would do off the back of a positive result yesterday, of course. How the devil are you?
Yeah, I'm not in the Christmas spirit. And like usually we'd do something on the podcast where we'd have some Christmassy graphics or we'd have some sleigh bells on the theme tune and all of that. But honestly, it just doesn't feel like Christmas at all. You know, we were kind of out in town yesterday and none of the pubs or anything had Christmas songs on. It didn't feel very Christmassy at all. And I made a Christmassy joke, a Christmassy-based joke to a guy in Tesco's last night. But it was also based on Peep Show, where I don't know if you know Peep Show very well. But basically, there's a bit where Mark says to Mark, "That wasn't very Christmassy." And I made that joke, and he didn't laugh. So people don't laugh at my Christmassy jokes. So tonight I have got the fire lit, and there is going to be a Christmas movie going on the television. To get in the mood, accompanied by that traditional Christmas staple of chicken goan curry, pakoras and rice.
Isn't Friday night normally curry night for you?
It is, but Friday night I was at a celebrity chef's having steak, so it was steak night. So I actually had curry Thursday night, steak Friday night. We had curry last night, obviously, at Mowgli for the Stacey West Podcast Christmas dinner, and I am now having curry again tonight. Genuinely, aside from the fact that being a ginger, I couldn't handle the climate for any longer than kind of 15 minutes, I think I could live in India. I mean, obviously,
the biggest atmospheric factor that there is that it's going to be too hot for you. Everything else about it, be fine.
Yeah. I mean, basically what I'm saying is I could just eat Indian food all the time because I'm not really sure that I could handle their economic climate either. I think it's a bit, they've got some tough places. I can't believe we're 3 minutes 15 in and we're talking about me living in India of all places, because what we are here to talk about is football, and why we're padding at the beginning of a podcast that Chris is on, I have zero idea at all, because and I know that we are going to hear a lot of Mr. Lamming's voice, to a point where podcast listener and soon to be a guest on the show, we're going to get him on, Kyle Fox. We were actually discussing last night, what was it, expected XV, was it?
Expected time voice on air or something.
Yeah, XV. So expected voice should be 50-50. And then we were going to look for AV, which is actual voice. So if anybody does have any sort of software that tracks what percentage of the podcast is my voice and what percentage of the podcast is Chris's voice, I would be fascinated to know. And I would then like to build that into a field tilt graph that we could impress on you all. Now we do have a little bit of a special tonight, because a little bit later on, we are actually going to show those of you watching on YouTube a graph, but Chris has promised me that he's then going to articulate it in a way that if you're listening in your car or on your run or on the toilet or wherever you listen to the Stacey West Podcast, it will make sense.
I have promised it's going to last no longer than 1 minute.
Yeah, which is a promise usually he's able to fulfill to the pleasure of absolutely nobody. So we'll see if he promises of under a minute. And just for those who know that I stayed at Chris's, by the way, last night, that wasn't on the cards at all. We were in separate rooms, so that was a deal breaker for me. Whenever I stay out at anybody's house, I do insist on separate rooms. Right, so let's crack on. I did have a great segue planned a minute ago into the Reading thing, and then you spoke over me, Alan Partridge style. So unfortunately, I don't have that segue. But I was going to say what really makes sense is keeping the same team when you've played well the week before. And the experiment last week with Ben House playing as a 10 and kind of maybe slightly wider centre forwards potentially. I think that it made perfect sense for us to give that a go again. So there wasn't really any surprises, was there, on the team sheet?
Not in terms of the selection, maybe in terms of how they lined up a little bit, because we did play a different shape than we did against Huddersfield, despite it being exactly the same lineup. I think the key for it, in all honesty, is the fact that we've found a way of getting Ben House in the team, being really effective as a goal threat, but getting his kind of skill set off the ball and still being able to play two other forwards. I think being able to find that mix has taken a little while to find, of course, but I think we've got there now. It was brilliant in that first half against Huddersfield. When Ben was moved out of that 10 role against Huddersfield, I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it was one factor that maybe led to Huddersfield getting slightly kind of back into the game more so. And it suited him again yesterday. We were more kind of a 4-2-3-1. Certainly out of possession, we were 4-2-3-1. In possession, we know we're quite fluid anyway, but out of it, we were definitely there with kind of Bailey playing far more centrally. Jovan, I think most people have noticed, was far wider yesterday than normal. Rico was definitely a winger rather than a wing back yesterday. We kind of played a back four with Sean as a left back and Tendai as a right back. Again, in possession, it shifts a little bit, but that was definitely kind of their starting roles. So, yeah, different lineup. Same lineup, but slightly different shape. But let's be honest, very, very similar performance levels to the first half against Huddersfield a week ago.
Yeah, it was. And the difference here, I think, is the opposition. Because with the greatest respect, and normally I say that before I throw a huge amount of disrespect onto something or somebody, but with the greatest respect, Reading was shit. They were shit from the first minute, really through to the last minute. But they are a team on their arse. They had the boy that was sent off, that obviously we're going to come on to, was only starting his second league game. Unfortunately, they may have been sixth going into this game, but I think that's the highest they're going to be all season. I think you're going to see them tumble now. They were beaten 3-0 by Blackpool. But we still had to go out and be professional. And the point is that all of the stuff that you just said, all of the kind of the little tactical tweaks, etc., worked against one of the biggest clubs in the division. And then they were then able to kind of counteract that in the second half and produce that excellent game last week, which we didn't get the result that we wanted, but we got a result. Whereas this week, there was just nothing that Reading could really do at all. And I think from start to finish, bar perhaps a 10-15 minute spell in the first half, we were excellent. And it all started really with that early goal. We watched the highlights together again this morning, and I'm crediting Sean Rowan with a huge amount of credit. Double credits. Not sure you can do that. Because not only was it the long throw, which kind of came back out to him, but it was a recycled cross. You said it was a good save. I think the keeper, McGrandle's header was straight at the keeper, but it's the fox in the box. And Bailey Cadamarteri, we'll come on to this, but he only had 22 actions in the whole of the game, and 7 of them were successful. And to put that into context, Ethan Arahan had 95, and there was however many were successful, 70, 60.
75 or something, yeah.
Yeah, so literally one of 6 positive things that Bailey Cadamarteri, or one of 7 positive things that Bailey Cadamarteri did, was score the goal that just set the tone for the rest of the game.
It did, yeah. And we mentioned this before throughout the season. Like, Bailey's clearly got goal-scoring instincts, but I think when you play 2 up top there with 3 midfielders in behind, and it's nowhere near the same as having just 1 up top. But when you've got one striker who is so... He is one-dimensional to an extent. He's a goal scorer. He's a fox in the box. He's a poacher. It's the most important skill to have on a football pitch. But football isn't only that part of the pitch. You've got to get the ball there in the first place with good delivery. You've got to make the run to get that. Like, there's lots of stuff that goes on before the ball ends up in that area. But he is superb at that. But I think if you kind of had the mentality that you want to play a poacher, and you had the mentality Bailey Cadamarteri has to play, and then you pick him, well, do I play Ben House? Do I play Jevan McConnell? Do I play Freddie Draper? They all offer something different, but I think the rest of them offer a more rounded skill set than Bailey does. But none of them have the instincts in front of the 18-yard box that Bailey Cadamarteri does. And it's come back out to him, but it's a busy penalty area. He's reacted first. He's caught it really cleanly and he's banged it in. It's a goal. 3 goals in 3 games. He absolutely deserves it to play. I love how we're playing now with Jovan obviously cutting inside as a centre forward when we've got the ball. Ben House joining the attacks. It's almost like a front 3 when we're attacking. So we've got 3 centre forwards on the pitch when we've actually got the ball, when we're actually attacking. I think that balance of the front 3 we've kind of got now is really, really nice. But actually, something that's happened earlier in the season, we have started well in some games. We have had spells where we've dominated, but we haven't scored. And then the other team gets a bit of a foothold in the game, and then it becomes a really nervy sort of next 80 minutes. But we started the game brightly. We got a deserved goal for it. And you're absolutely right. It then just sets the tone for the rest of the game.
I think it's interesting that we've managed to get Bailey into the side, because we keep talking, or some fans keep talking about we need the fox in the box. We need just that goal scorer. But actually, you've seen it in years gone by that it can be to a detriment to a side. Mo Isa, for instance, at thinking he was at MK Dons, he's a passenger outside the box. Okay, he scores 20 odd goals, but you've got to have the right setup to support that type of player. And I don't think we've had the right setup to support that type of player when we've had that type of player. And when you go back to the likes of Danny Cowley's era, we didn't really ever have that player until it was kind of maybe Tyler Walker, but there was a little bit more to his game, I think. So it's interesting that we've been able to sort of get him into the side and find a system that works, not to the detriment of the team. And I'm not saying that Bailey Cadamartri doesn't work, because he does. I'm not saying anything kind of negative about him as a footballer, because what he does is an asset. And if you can work with it, you can work with it. And I just find it a little bit exciting going into this kind of Christmas period and beyond, that whether I'm not going to say stumbled on it, that we've managed to find that recipe that produces the best outcome. I was going to make some sort of bad food analogy there, but I'm not going to. So I suppose really the next thing to talk about would be a free kick that we were given, which was Rico Hackett. It was Holzman? Is that the kid's name? So he was actually a foul in the same area that he fouled in later. But he fouled Rico Hackett. Now, when this free kick was taken, I remember watching it just thinking, yeah, that wasn't really going to do anything. It's just a shot from Lewis. Then we watched it back this morning, and it was incredibly clever, wasn't it? It's a really clever free kick routine whereby we've got, I think it's McGrandles and Rowan stand exactly where the trajectory of the ball is going to be. And then they peel away just as Monsmer kind of puts his foot through it to create the gap. And okay, the keeper saved it on both occasions, but it was actually interesting. You don't really see it at match level. At match level, it's we've got a free kick, what we're going to do with it. Whereas in the replay, it's like, wow, actually that's a pretty well worked routine. And if you've got somebody that could have got a foot like a traction engine, probably it breaks the back of the net before the keeper gets there.
Yeah, it was something that I missed as well. We only noticed it when watching the highlights this morning. And there was 2 free kicks that Monsmer had, wasn't there, in the game that had a kind of similar look to them and a similar outcome, of course. The second one was quite comfortable for Pereira. I think the first one he made look comfortable. I don't think it was as comfortable a save as maybe he made it look. He's a really good goalkeeper, John Pereira. Well, yeah, it's smart. So I expect we'll probably see a little bit more of that from free kicks in shooting position there. So anything just to kind of create a little bit of chaos, isn't it? A little bit of an angle, just something that isn't just a straight shot. Even if it just delays the goalkeeper's reaction by a split second, it can make a difference. So, yeah, I don't think any of us noticed it in the game, but it was interesting watching it back nonetheless. And then I suppose the next talking point is what I think Reading supporters would definitely class as a pivotal moment in the game. It would potentially change the course of the game.
Sorry for anyone listening at home. The slurping noise is my dog, who has come into the room and is now deciding to clean his backside right next to me. So if you can hear a slurping noise, honestly, I'm hands-free. So yeah, it's a Stonewall penalty, and we've watched it back. We can see reasons why it hasn't been given. So the nudge, the keeper, the referee's kind of a little bit blindsided by it, so he maybe doesn't see the nudge. You think it's more of a coming together. The player's gone down maybe a little theatrically, but he's justified. This is just clutching at straws as to say why it wasn't given, not why it shouldn't have been given, because it absolutely should have been given. It's a Stonewall penalty, probably a yellow card, I would say, for Rowan. I mean, Smith's at an angle going away from goal, but you can understand why they were annoyed. And it is the same sort of penalty shout that we got away with against Huddersfield as well. So that is 2 now that we've got away with. Now, credit where it's due. I've criticised Adam Herdzeg before, the referee. Do you remember you and I went to watch the Doncaster EFL Trophy game, lost 2-1? The lad from Blackburn.
I'm trying to think what player was it we wanted to watch. That's the only game we ever played for is Jacob Davenport.
Jacob Davenport. Now, the referee that night really got on our wick, and that was him. That was Adam Herdzeg. And since then, we've won 3-0 against Wickham, and we beat Cambridge 2-0 with him in charge. And he's actually had good games for us, but we got away with him. We absolutely got away with him.
Massively got away with it, yeah. And like I said in the build-up to this, like Reading fans would look at that, obviously feel pretty peeved in the moment, but also your argument. And if it was the other way around, we'd be saying this the exact same, in that you get that, you score it. Obviously, it still has to be scored, but there's a 75%-ish chance that you're going to score a penalty. If it goes in, 1-1, game on. As a Lincoln City supporter, bearing in mind how we played against Huddersfield last week, how we'd played up until that point in this game, I would have still been confident at 2-1 that we'd have still gone on and won the game, or at least had the potential to do so with a strong performance. But not given, it's frustrating as a Reading supporter, because it is absolutely a justified penalty.
Yeah,
it does change the game. You can't deny that. But of course, something else changed the game quite significantly. It's only a few minutes later, wasn't it? And it was our friend Mr. Holtzman again.
Yeah, do you know what? I think Reading fans probably think that they could fall into a barrel of boobs and come out sucking their thumb these days, because everything goes wrong for them, doesn't it? And at the other end, there might have been officials that didn't send him off. Because there's no intent whatsoever. It's just Ben House gets away from a young lad who's probably been pitched in a little bit early. And there's shades now of Bolton a few years ago where they had to play all their academy players. It's just beginning to feel like that. And if this transfer window, they get asset stripped, Lewis Wing and Harvey Nibbs going off to Hull is one of the rumours. I do feel for them. It's basic. A wily centre forward has got round a young defender. The defender's just got himself all in a muddle. It's not an intentional foul. It's almost like his legs come across the back of Ben House's leg, but it's not a kick. It's just, if it was against us, we would probably say it was a red card, but it's, on the scale of really obvious to a little bit harsh, it's probably only just leaning away from kind of towards harshish, but it is a red card, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's a red. I don't think there's much debate in this one, to be honest.
No, there's no debate.
I think it's unfortunate, because I don't think the centre back has actively even tried to tackle. But it's really good centre forward play. You're taught to run across your defender, because they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to get out of the way and stop tackling you, or they're going to bring you down because they clip your legs because you run across them. Even if they don't mean to stick a leg out, you're both running. You're going to get contact. He did it. 2-3 yards outside the 18-yard box, in the middle of it's a one-on-one opportunity if he doesn't make the foul. Whether it's intentional or not, it's a red card. It is. It's really unfortunate for him, but it's a red card. And that, even if we didn't see another goal, I think that's the moment where it was relaxing from that point, because I was quite comfortable for the majority of the game, but that was relaxing because Reading just looked devoid of confidence. And when it rains it pours, doesn't it? Not penalty not given, in addition to all the stuff happening off the pitch, and then a few minutes later a red card. They just can't catch a break at the moment. We were the beneficiaries of that, obviously, yesterday, which we're all Lincoln City supporters. We're pleased about it, but I do feel dreadfully sorry for Reading supporters, because rains it pours. But I have to say they were really good. Came up in good numbers. There was more of them than I expected there to be. Made a decent bit of noise as well. Fair play to those hardy souls that made the effort to still support their team. Within this, really just horrible period for the club. But from a Lincoln perspective, that was, even without the second goal, it was game over. I always back us to be able to dominate teams against 10 men. We're really good at finding overloads on the pitch against 11. We're going to easily be able to do that against 10. It's a different ball game when you're playing against 10. But I think we're always set up to be able to deal with that. I think there are other teams, maybe, as in other Lincoln City teams that from the recent past, who maybe haven't been quite as set up to break down or to play against 10 men.
Danny Cowley's teams.
Was it Oldham away?
Oldham,
I think we went down to 10 men, and they were the better team from that point when they had the man sent off. So, and that's only one example, but But Michael Skubala's Lincoln City, I think, is just really, really primed to take advantage of that situation. And literally from that moment onwards, Reading hardly had a kick at all. So went into half-time, 1-0 up. I felt so relaxed. It's the most relaxed I've ever felt at a football game this season. Obviously felt more so at full time, but it was just felt really comfortable, and it was nice. It was nice to feel like you don't get that very often, do you? So it was nice to experience it. But I'm always a little bit tentative because you can't help your feelings. It just comes across. You just think, oh, I feel all relaxed now. But the last time I felt like that was when we were 2-0 up at home to MK Dons under Michael Appleton, and we lost 3-2, obviously in the last minute or two.
That was a Boxing Day game as well. Boxing Day horrors. We are terrible normally on Boxing Day, but we'll come on to that. I agree with you. I just thought second half I don't think Reading they didn't have a shot on target until the last minute. They were misplacing passes, and we were just excellent. And look, it's probably a good time just to call out a few names of players who were not just good yesterday, but in my opinion, outstanding. Rico Hackett was, I think he was a shoo-in for man of the match, having got his goal. I think Jovan was superb. I mean, he bullied their guys down the flank. What was it? 3 dribbles, 1-on-1, beat players every time, successful every time. Put a hell of a lot of effort in. He chased everything down. Really, really good performance. Ethan Arahan was, the word that I would like to use is splendid, because he was just splendid. Everything he did yesterday, he did it with ease. The way he uses his body to shield the ball, the way that he protects the ball, the way he picks passes. I remember him putting one pass astray, and his anger at himself when he put that pass astray. I mean, he was absolutely purring yesterday in every single sense of the word. Conor McGrandles, I thought, was outstanding as well. Getting on the ball, really, really good. They were probably, for me, the 4 that stood out the most, more so. And that's not saying that any of the other players were not good at all, but it's just those 4 for me were just, if they're not 8.5 on the Stacey West player rater at this moment in time, I will be shocked. In fact, I'm going to have a look. Makama is 8.5, Hackett is 8.4, Arahan is 8.4, and McGrandles is 7.6, which surprises me. But those 3, Hackett, Arahan, and Makama, absolutely stood out a mile.
They did, yeah. I'm with you. I'd like to keep Conor McGrandles in there as well. I think Conor McGrandles he's just so smart and composed on the ball. His decision making is really good. He rarely gives the ball away, and he just seems to make the right decision all the time. He's kind of playing next to Ethan at the moment, but Ethan is obviously deeper. But in that kind of 4-2-3-1 shape, it was him and Ethan as the kind of two deeper midfielders. But Ethan just sets the tone for everything that we do, doesn't he? So not only does his passes set the tone, but it's his standards do as well, don't they? He has those standards for himself. You mentioned him beating himself up after one pass. I think if he's doing that after playing like that, other players, you'd like to think that kind of rubs off on them. But yeah, Rico Hackett was at his flying best. Looked so confident when he was coming back after injury. We both mentioned this, and it's great to have Rico back, but he doesn't seem quite there just yet. Everything seemed just a little bit overly deliberate. Like it seemed a little bit slower, I suppose, is probably the best way. Everything was just that little bit, more. It took a bit longer for him to decide, I'm going to cut inside, go outside. It felt like it took half an hour to do a step over. But like Jeff Hughes used to, his step overs used to do like the widest circle around the ball. Anyway, that was a blast from the past, isn't it? There's no tricking no one doing that, Jeff Hughes. Anyway, but yeah, he was just gliding past people yesterday like we saw last season. And he's been doing that for a couple of weeks, but it really stood out yesterday. And then, a special mention to Jovan Makama playing more on the right, certainly out of possession on the right, drifting in with it. Just outstanding. I think that's the best game I've seen Jovan Makama play. Genuinely, he didn't hardly put a foot wrong. 3 dribbles of success, created more chances than anyone else on the pitch. 3 chances created, so that's basically a pass followed by a shot. So 3 key passes, 3 successful dribbles, 100% success rate on all of those. Can't ask for much more for someone playing in the role that he was doing yesterday. He deserved a goal. He never really had the opportunity to get to score or to get a shot away, but just the overall performance level deserved a goal. But yeah, I think the selection that we've got at the moment, it's our strongest available 11. And with a squad so deep as we've got, with the likes of Jack Moylan being really good in the last few weeks, and unfortunate to lose out and not start last week. I and other players, Dom Jeffries has been really consistent so far this season as well when he's played in multiple positions. But right now, I can't see a stronger 11 for us. And that's nice to know that, isn't it? Or at least have that feeling. And Michael's been probably waiting for that for months and months and months to find, well, what is this best? With all things being equal, what is the best 11 that I can pick? I think we found it. It's taken a while to get there, but we're probably there now.
I agree. And I mean, it also brings me on to Ben House because he's hit the inside of the post twice, which is just on the second one was an outstanding save. I mean, you watch it back and Pereira just tips it onto the post. He then got into it with one of the Reading players and they had a little hug out and he picked up another booking. I'm not sure he ever gets booked for anything other than mouthing off, but for 1 minute, I thought they both might go because they looked like they were going to have blows when they got up. They were kind of throwing each other about, and I thought, "Is it going to end 9 versus 10?" But thankfully it didn't. And then there was the bizarre moment for Lewis Montsma where he's we watched it back. We don't really know what's happened. So, was it a free kick or something's come in, or a shot's come in, and the keeper's parried it, dropped it. Montsma's gone in to try and head it, and the referee's given a free kick. I mean, we're not going to criticise the referee, by the way, because we have no right whatsoever to criticise the referee. But it was an odd moment, wasn't it? And you think, well, if play continues there, somebody rattles that ball in, and that's game, set, match.
Yeah, like looking back, it was bizarre to see a free kick given the other way. If anything, it was a foul on Lewis Montsma. But Michael did say in his interview afterwards, I think it was for something as the ball was being delivered for the first time. So and obviously everything happened so quickly. Yeah, so Michael briefly addressed that. That was only his. I don't know whether he spoke to the referee about it or whether it was just his perception of it. But of course, it didn't impact the game, so it's not the end of the world. And as much as the game was stopped, it was a dead ball after that. I'm still counting that as the post being hit, and I don't think I've ever seen the post being hit 3 times in one match by the same team.
Inside of the post twice as well. Inside the post.
Good point.
And they don't even count shots on target. Because I was looking at Y-Scout and we had like 7 shots, 2 on target in the second half. And I'm thinking, well, we hit the post twice. For me, it's the target, but I suppose it's not off target for me, misses the goal. If you hit the post, I think that is an ambiguous area.
Yeah, they do separate it on FOTMOB actually as on target, off target, and then just
on post.
Just hit woodwork, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's
they are wood. They're not wood now, are they?
I doubt it. I have no idea. I don't know. That's a great question. Anyone wants to tell us what modern goalposts are made of, so please do let us know.
Yeah, but it doesn't hit the metalwork twice. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it?
No.
Hit the woodwork. So let's move on to, 27 minutes in already. We said we were going to do 30 minutes on this. It's obviously now going to be a little bit more than that. Of course it is. Our second goal, we didn't need to kill the game off, because the game was dead. And I think if we don't score that, we win 1-0. It's not like we were ever in any doubt, looking like we were going to concede. Another great team goal, but an assist from Mr. Montsma with a pass that had us both waxing lyrical this morning when we watched it back, because it was just a sumptuous pass. And to be fair, it's like I pointed out in my article, a pass is only as good as who it finds. And if he whips that in and Hackett is 3 yards behind the ball, we're not talking about it. So the finish made the pass, kind of, if you get what I'm saying. But it was just a lovely move after a sustained spell of possession, I seem to recall.
Yes, completely agree with your point. And it's kind of 6 to 1, half on the other, because you're absolutely right. It's not just a good ball into an area, and Rico's made a good run to get on the back of it. Like Lewis, because Rico starts his run quite deep, but he really commits to his run. Lewis Montsma spots Rico's run from deep, and he puts it in an area so that he can run straight onto it. So it's a credit from Rico to making that run and really committing to that run, because it's so easy not to commit to that. It's a pass that no one else on the pitch saw. So for Rico to commit to that run in the hope that it goes in is good forward play. For Lewis to spot that, and then, of course, to have the technical ability to put it on a sixpence so that Rico doesn't have to break his stride at all, and he just literally runs onto the ball and really good finish into the bottom corner. But it couldn't have been placed better from Lewis Montsma. It was a delightful goal. And like you said, I don't think there was any real doubt in anyone's mind which team was going to win the game before that. But at 1-0, you never know. Anything could happen. Someone could fall on their arse. Someone could be a small deflection somewhere, and it's 1-1 out of nowhere. It was game, set, and match after that point. And then, to be honest, not a huge amount happened other than them attempting a really good overhead kick for their only shot on target in the second half. But ultimately, it was kind of game, set, and match from that point. It was a really professional performance just to see the game out. To be honest, we all could have gone home at that point and wouldn't have really missed a lot. We all knew what the result was going to be. Even if we didn't see the highlights or the score back, we all knew the game was going to be a Lincoln City win when it went to 2-0. And I mentioned this when we did that little half-time discussion, but at full time, it was just a really comfortable feeling. And there's no better feeling in football than a last-minute winner, by the way. Like, you'd always take a 1-0 win with a last-minute winner. But there is something quite comforting about, for 90 minutes, never really been bothered, being able to sit for 90 minutes without your heart rate really going too high, without really feeling too nervous, and just be able to sit there and actually enjoy 90 minutes of football. You kind of already knew which team was going to win, really, but you're just watching it unfold and enjoying every moment. It happens so rarely, so I took great pleasure in that, and it was a nice way to round off the year at home. It's our last home game of 2024. Nice to put an end to the less than positive in terms of results, and I think we're all just feeling really positive now, aren't we, about things.
I just want to pick up on one thing from the overhead kick as well, because we are going on about the 10 outfield players and the subs came on and they had a nice impact. It's just so nice then for George Wickens just to get a little moment at the end, because he said it's not a bad save, actually. It's a decent effort and he's had to save it. Thought Wickens, he didn't have an awful lot to do, but everything that he was called upon to do, he did, and I thought he bossed his area a little bit better. There was one moment where a ball was going back and the defender was chasing it, and there was a clear call, defender leaves, Wickens out picking. I just felt that he probably needed a game where he didn't have an awful lot to do in order to help get a little bit of confidence. And we're talking about the goals, but the clean sheet's really important. I know we didn't look dangerous, but they had Sam Smith and Harvey Nibbs and Lewis Wing on the pitch. They're three really good footballers. They're three top 6 League One footballers. Any side, even probably Birmingham City, would have any 2 of those 3 in and around their squad on a match day. Like even Wrexham would have those 3 players. They'd be in their match day squad. So I just think it was nice to. We're talking about them being an academy team and a young team and a fractured team and a team that are down on confidence. But let's not forget they do have good players. A handful of them, perhaps. So I felt that it was a real lift. And like you say, the satisfaction of knowing we're going into Christmas in 6th. And as we came out of the ground, somebody walked past me and he said, "Well, we're 6th, so let's stop all this afternoon's games and we'll be in the playoffs at Christmas." And I kind of thought we were 6th, but we were going to be dropping down. And then at the end of the day, we're still 6th, and it is a nice feeling. And you talk about the run. But it goes all the way back to before Halloween, because we beat Stockport and Northampton around Halloween. And then we hadn't won a game in the league since. But you look at Wyscout and we've won cup games, Chesham and Morecambe and Crawley. So the run doesn't look so bad. But actually, what was it, 7 games? Is it 6 games or 7 games without a win? So you're talking 3 or 4 points from potential 21, and yet here we are, 1 win. And now we're back in 6th, and we're only 5 points off the team above us again. There's a clear top 5 and a clear chasing pack, and we go into Christmas top of that chasing pack. And I just think for all of there's been a little bit of criticism building. There's been some nerves building. You and I said it before the Huddersfield game. It's not a must-win game, but it does feel like a game where we really need a win. And we did. We didn't get it. Tension was building. So I think it's really nice now. We're going to be at Christmas, still in 2 cups, in the top 6. What crisis? What concerns? On we go.
Yeah, I think there's a difference in this little run compared to, I suppose, last season when we was on a difficult run, because we weren't playing brilliantly at all. And this time around, I think we have seen. We always try and see the positives or spot them when they're there, but we were playing generally pretty well. I think we've only really played like absolutely terribly once this season, and that was in the second half at Crawley in the league. I think the rest of the season in our run, there's been lots of glimpses of positives, some things that we could do better. We all know that, but I didn't think we were far away. But at some point, you've got to pick up the win. You have to. It is a points and results business. So it doesn't matter how well you're playing on the pitch. Well is only really defined for so long by performance. You have to pick up points at some point. And so, yeah, I felt differently about this run. I thought we would pick up wins at some point. But, yeah, you need to do it. You need to do it eventually, don't you? And it's nice to do that. But it's strange, isn't it? Because, like you say, we have been on a dodgy run. We have only picked up a few points recently. And there was a little bit of doubt, worry, concern, whatever it might be. But and it's not negativity as in, like, kicking out and being too vocally negative. It's just negativity in that, yeah, there's a few negative emotions coming out, a bit of frustration, a bit of concern, a bit of not sure what direction you're going in. And it's like just completely dissipated now. But if you'd said to me pre-season, we'd be this many games in, you'd have played X amount, won X amount, drawn X amount, got X amount of points, you'd be in 2 cups still, and I would, with no other context of what order that came in, who those points were against, we'd all be absolutely delighted with where we are right now. We would have snapped your hand off, and there wouldn't be a single Lincoln City supporter that would not have taken where we are right now pre-season. So I suppose, it's a nice place to take stock, isn't it? Christmas. Yep. We're exactly where we hoped to be. It's actually higher than I thought we would be, but it's exactly where I hoped we'd be. And I think we can still get better.
I think we can as well, but we are going to have to move on. We are going to have to hurry it along a little bit. So we're going to take a break now if you are listening in at home. So we will roll the adverts now. The reason there was a bit of a pause there is because I'd written 36:15 down and I was just waiting for it to actually click over to 36:15 so that what I'd written down was correct. As we do on the live show, we will take a couple of the comments before we go back into the main podcast. Just for those that are watching at home, we're going to be touching on some of Jez's comments after this, and then we're going to be looking at Shrewsbury. So we have got online, I don't know if everyone is still here or not, 53 watching at the minute. So if you're watching, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So evening to Steve, evening to Dave, evening to Adam, evening to Harry, evening to Flossy Tops. Merry Christmas to you all at the Stacey West Podcast. Have a good one. I had a good one yesterday. I was the only one that was really properly drinking, and I didn't regret it today either. Steve Ray says, good evening. Now he's put, did you enjoy the drunken comments from one row below you guys yesterday? Now, I don't know because we sit in different places. So I don't know if Steve means some comments from below you or if he means below me. Now, there was a guy who sat at the end of my row yesterday who had almost like 10 seats in every direction. Everybody was looking at him because he was an oldish guy, a brown leather jacket, and he sat there. And when we scored, he was going, "We want double figures today, Lincoln, double figures today." And he was just coming out with the most random, awful, like rubbish. And then we saw him in the Cardinals hat, didn't we? And he was just on his own. Yeah. Well, yeah, and he went outside, and he'd taken a glass outside with him, and the bouncers. I mean, it must have been 65 or something like that. I genuinely, every time he wandered off, I thought that he was going to try and find his carer who he had shed. Anyway, Dave said, was thinking all the way up to yesterday how I wish we'd kept TJ. Interesting. I mean, I'd have had TJ in the squad, but there we go. Evening all, I think yesterday's formation sorts all attacking players. Ben to me isn't a lone striker. He isn't, correct. I'm going to have to move on a little bit. Sorry if I'm skipping through anyone's comments. So who do we have? We've got Sue on. Hello, Sue. Ethan with Rico was sublime. Chris Keneally's on. That's not Chris. That's Sue. Sorry again. Where's Chris? Because it's an unusual comment from Chris because it doesn't mention the academy. Wonder if he's all right. Can someone who knows Chris Keneally just check and see if he's all right? Because he's done a comment without the academy. Kate's online. Evening, Kate. Evening, both. Hope you're well. Watching after finishing work. John Bates is on. Lovely guy, John. Hope you're well, mate. Merry Christmas. So there we go. Right. Shall we think about getting back into the podcast?
Let's do it.
So we'll do it at 39:05. Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of the Stacey West Podcast, and I promise you it's going to be shorter than part 1 because I have a curry to eat. So we've parked Reading now. Rob Makepeace did a really good interview with Jez George. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to it, which I haven't, please do. But luckily, this guy next to me that's the wrong side, actually has had an opportunity to listen to it. And he broke it all down for us in a WhatsApp group. Now, we're not going to go through everything, but there are a couple of points I think that we wanted to address, which we will do succinctly and with our usual level of expertise and understanding of the situations. So we're talking about players coming in, players going out. Now, first of all, I think the big talking point is it was more or less suggested that we are not going to be in the market for a striker in the winter window. Now, this comes as absolutely no surprise whatsoever to me, for a start, because I put a transfer window special out, the other day, basically saying we're not going to be looking for a striker. Didn't think we would be. Probably don't think Bailey Cadamarteri will be recalled because he can't go out anywhere else. He's unlikely really to get multiple minutes at Sheffield Wednesday, and he's now playing regularly for us. And Joe Taylor, we've simply been priced out of. And I think it's fairly common knowledge that Huddersfield Town are going to be the team taking Joe Taylor in the winter window. But not really a surprise. But even still, I've been seeing things like loan Freddie Draper to Walsall, and we'll have the boy Lowe, who's there now, and stuff like that. It's not going to happen, is it? When January comes, I think we're going to have the same complement of strikers, potentially bar one who will go out, who we'll talk about in a minute, than we've got now.
Yep, absolutely right. It came as no surprise, but it's nice to have it confirmed. It also tempers expectations a little bit, doesn't it, doing it before the window's even opened. So now we all know it's really unlikely we're going to sign a centre forward. We don't need one. I think we've probably seen that proven in the last two games. It certainly helps off the back of two positive performances in which, centre forwards have scored some goals in. So, no surprise. We've got 6 first-team fit centre forwards. We've got one who scored 3 and 3. We've got one that's playing in a number 10 role that's getting into the box, hit the post twice yesterday, is still, I think, our best overall, all-round forward player in Ben House. Got 2 really good youngsters who are ever improving, particularly Jovan Makama, ever improving. And then we've got the kind of the wild cards of Tyler Walker, coming back into the squads. Wouldn't it be brilliant? Wouldn't it be brilliant if Tyler could get everyone in games and get some goals? But there's no pressure on him to do so, but it's a nice option to have. And then Rob Street, that we know is going to be here on a 4-year deal. He's here for a long time. Needs that another option as well. We don't need one. They've got to play. There's no point just having them in the squad. They've got to play. And if you sign one, someone else isn't going to be playing. So we don't need one. Next.
No, all I'd say as well, just to kind of cap that off before we move on, our strikers, Fred, Jovan, Ben House and Bailey Cadamarteri, I think have shared 14 goals in the league this season. I think if you then add Rob Street into that and throw all competitions, we're at 22. Now, you would take 2 10-goal a season or 10-goal strikers at this stage of the season. That's basically 2 Joe Taylors. Now, I know we've chopped and changed, and I know that we have been a little wasteful in front of goal. But in actual fact, we don't have a massive problem. We were struggling to be clinical against Wrexham and against Exeter and against Bristol Rovers. But genuinely, at this moment in time, I don't think it's a major issue. I don't think we need a huge amount in the transfer window at all, if I'm honest. So we will then move on to potentially players that are currently in the squad, potentially going out on loan. And I think the 2 or the 3 big names to be kind of lumped into that are JJ McKiernan, Rob Street, and potentially Dylan Duffy as well. Now, the big surprise there for many will probably be JJ McKiernan, because I think he's looked really good when he's had an opportunity. But with Jack Moylan and with the shuffling around in tactics that we've got, he's unlikely to start 10, 15 games between now and May. And that's no slur on him at all. If he goes out, if Rob Street goes out, they're on 4-year deals. They're not going out with a view to staying out. This isn't the Michael Appleton loan where, Theo Archibald goes out, he ain't coming back. Zach Elbazzedi goes out, he ain't coming back. These players go out, it's just to get minutes and come back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's simply that. And Jez made that really clear in his interview. Which again is just brilliant that we have this amount of access as a fan base from Jez, and openness, I think, is always really appreciated. And I think it's important for us to point out that most fan bases don't get that. So we are lucky to have that honesty. But he made it really clear, like they're massively part of the football club, but they need minutes. They're only going to develop if they play. And at the moment they're not playing because other players are ahead of them in the pecking order because they've played better and taken their chances when they've been given them. That's what you want. You want that competition for places in the squad. So it makes total sense for them to head out on loan. Most likely to League Two, I imagine, for them both. Don't know where, but I imagine somewhere in League Two with a team with a similar style to us, and hopefully have a half a season each playing really well and playing a good number of games, and then they come into the summer with with hopefully a greater opportunity of getting into the squad. But it wasn't just those three that Jess mentioned as well, because a couple of players that are currently out on loan at other clubs who we might see a bit of movement with as well in Oisin Gallagher and Zach Bradshaw. Yeah, Oisin Gallagher is playing really, really well at Peterborough Sports. Jess did mention more than happy for him to stay there for the whole season. However, he may well have outgrown that level a little bit, and if there's potential for him to go out on loan one or two steps higher, I'd imagine a National League loan potentially, then that might be something to look at. And Zach Bradshaw hasn't played a lot of football at Tranmere Rovers, so it's likely he may well be recalled to go back out on loan elsewhere, where he is likely to get some more football. So yeah, that was the headlines, really, wasn't it, from the interview, certainly from a transfer perspective. But Jez reiterated that it's most likely going to be a quiet window. If we sign, we'll most likely sign for the long term. So we might see a project player coming in. He did actually explain the centre-back position, the centre-back situation quite well. I don't know if you caught this, because there's a little clip of this, I think, somewhere. So he said that Adam Jackson is due back early January. Tom Hamer is due back mid to late January. So they're still going to play plenty of football this season. There's a lot of games after January to be involved in. That would then give us 5 really high quality centre backs. Right now we're a bit short in that position, so you'd like to bring one in. In an ideal world, we'd like to bring a left footer in to cover Sean, but Sean has been so consistent. So realistically, you want to bring someone in who's good enough to play now, but realistically might not play much football between now and the end of the season. Like that's a difficult sell, isn't it? I think, to anyone. So the news I got out of that is that we're maybe not as desperate for a centre back as we thought we were, but also that's a tough situation to find yourself in. But also, it's nice to hear that Jacko and Hamer are closer to being back than I thought they were, to be honest. So yeah, mainly positives. But even that centre back position, which we both thought was almost guaranteed to see a signing, maybe we won't.
Well, when we talk about players coming back, that presents me with a lovely smooth segue, because we will have a former Lincoln City legend back at the Bank, or we won't, because it's away. So we will be playing against a former Lincoln City legend on Boxing Day in the form of Gareth Ainsworth, and that moves us on to the final part of the podcast, which is where we preview Shrewsbury Town and Lincoln City. Now, Boxing Day games are always a little bit different, and in recent years for Lincoln City, they've always been a little bit rubbish. We have lost, if I remember correctly, to Guiseley when they were rock bottom and going to be relegated. We were 2-0 against MK Dons and lost 3-2. We lost 3-0 at Burton Albion. We lost to Crewe Alexandra the year that we won the title. I can't remember Boxing Day last year, but I'm pretty sure we were beaten Boxing Day last year as well. I mean, yeah, well, we must have been, because we were on a terrible run, weren't we? So we lose on Boxing Day. And the only real 2 that I can think of in recent years where we don't lose on Boxing Day was 5-1 against Burton, when there was no supporters in the ground, and they had Neil Erdley and Michael Boswick. And when we beat Stevenage 3-0 in our first year back in the Football League. Playing Shrewsbury Town at the moment, when you look at their recent games, they've won 1 of their last 11 games, and that was against Birmingham. They have lost 9 of their last 11 games, losing 4-1 to Wickham, 4-1 to Cambridge, 2-1 to Blackpool, 3-0 to Walsall in the FL Trophy, 2-0 to Burton, 2-1 to Salford in the FA Cup, 2-0 to Barnsley, 2-0 to Exeter. On paper, they do look terrible. Now, Chris, you would like to tell us why they are terrible using the medium of a graph, which rather foolishly halfway through I closed down. So I've just had to pad a little bit there until I get it in. So for those of you watching on YouTube, there is now a graph with some pinks and some purples that Chris is going to talk through. If you are listening in at home, Chris is going to illuminate this into your vision. So he's going to make sure that you understand it as well without seeing it. And he's going to do it all in 1 minute, which starts now.
Challenge accepted. Right. Yes. So amongst all the other statistics that you look at throughout a game to try and preview a team that I always do, one thing I always pay attention to is this really good graph provided by Opta. And ultimately, it just displays what part of the pitch do teams kind of dominate. So it includes total touches for your team compared to the opposition team in all of your games combined at different parts of the pitch. What is common is that most teams will dominate their own area. And then the further up you go forward in the pitch, you expect the opposition to dominate those areas. And then it's nice to have a look at this to see if anyone, that's fine, to see if anyone has any kind of areas of the pitch where maybe they're stronger or maybe they're weaker. So to give you an indication of ours, I haven't got ours on here. We defend our 18-yard box really well. We're actually quite left side dominant going forward. We are better that have more of the ball than our opposition does on the left-hand side of the pitch as well. Shrewsbury, this is Shrewsbury Town's graph here. So I thought I'll have a quick check to see if they're particularly weak anywhere. And they're weak everywhere, basically. Even in their own box, which I think is just, this is the most mental graph I've ever seen of this. It shows real weakness. So get the balls in the box, you should win, is kind of what we're getting from this. But it was so overwhelmingly kind of mad. I had to ask permission from Gary, can we please share this on the podcast? But what can we learn from this is that they don't defend their box very well at all. That they have less touches in their own box and in their own third than the opposition do. That's well over a minute. I'll be quiet.
But what I would ask then as a caveat on that is that takes into account the full season.
Yes.
Whereas Gareth Ainsworth has only been there for however many games. So it's always hard to preview for a game against a team where the manager has changed really recently. So those stats, whilst they do suggest that they don't do particularly well in those areas, since Gareth Ainsworth's been in, they've scored in every game for a start. I think they've scored 10 goals, 8 goals rather since he's been in there. Okay, they are conceding. But I always try and put I'm trying to put something on this because, as Kate quite correctly says, I've seen Lincoln lose an untold number of games against teams at the bottom of the table, teams down the years, not to take them lightly. But it's hard not to take them lightly when you look at not only when you look at their squad. For instance, I think if they got the Sago Junior, is he the one that's on loan from Arsenal, who really didn't impress me in our pre-season friendly. John Marquis is their starting striker, who I don't think has been good enough at this level for a little while now. So he's obviously going to score. I follow Salopcast, an absolutely brilliant podcast, and I don't follow many opposition podcasts and accounts just purely because I don't have time to watch them, or quite often the Twitter output isn't as higher quality as the actual content that people are putting out. But Salopcast's Twitter content is brilliant, and they're basically saying it's game over for them this season. So it really does have all the ingredients of a game that we're going to lose.
Yeah, I suppose so. Lincoln City being Lincoln City on the back of two good performances on Boxing Day against a team rightfully bottom of the league. Yeah, I think there's two elements here, isn't there? If you're looking at this from a neutral, all the pointers would suggest a Lincoln City victory here, and all of the metrics that I've looked at would suggest that is the case. And I would hate for us to go into this expectant and overly positive, because it's football. Anything can happen. You mentioned that they've lost a lot of games recently, but they beat the best team in the league. They beat Birmingham 3-2. Hilarious game, by the way. It's Gareth Ainsworth's first game in charge. I think they had 11% possession in that game. But they scored 3 goals. And they are scoring goals, as you mentioned. There are 8 teams in League One who have scored fewer goals than Shrewsbury. They're basically in line with their expected goals. They're reasonably clinical compared to the other teams down there. So as a attacking outlet, they are going to offer threats. But it is defensively that they are really poor. I imagine that's the part of the pitch that Gareth Ainsworth is going to be trying desperately in January to improve, but he can't on Boxing Day in terms of transfers. In their last few games, they conceded 2 against Wigan, 4 against Wickham, 4 against Cambridge, who obviously conceded 5 themselves this week. Conceded 2 against Blackpool, did beat Birmingham 3-2, but conceded 2 goals. They've conceded at least 2 goals in every single one of Gareth Ainsworth's matches so far. If you're conceding 2 goals in every game, you're not going to win many. So they need to improve their defensive output. And from looking at clips, what this suggests, they're just really poor at defending their own
Everything.
box, but particularly defending their own box. Yeah. And we like to get balls in the box. Yeah, we played a lot more football yesterday and against Huddersfield in the first half than we have recently in terms of our in-possession play. Out of possession, we're still good. We've been good all season. In possession, we have improved recently. But we still like to get the ball in the area. So I feel bad being so bullish here and being so positive and confident, especially against Gareth Ainsworth's side. Yeah, well, I did tell you on Thursday that I was going into Reading feeling more confident than I have for a long, long time, and thankfully that came out positive as well. But yeah, all the directions point into a Lincoln win here. And if we do have genuine aspirations of a playoff finish, you need to win these games. You do. Like, we don't need to from a survival perspective or a development perspective. Lots of games to play for. If we want to have a playoff run, you win these games. We're set up to be able to dominate teams that are down in the bottom part of the pitch, part of the table. These are the teams that we should be taking 6 points off throughout the season, and hopefully we can. Starting, of course, on Boxing Day.
Just going through Salopcast's Twitter feed, and pardon the language here, I will put a language filter note on this. 21 minutes. Benning messes up a header back and it goes out for a corner. Savin has been poor the last few weeks, but by God, he isn't our worst player. So many candidates above Savin for that award. 24 minutes. Shipley with another shite free kick. Doesn't find a man. 42 minutes. Salop take a short corner. I'll drop the F word. F it up and it goes out for a throw-in. Half-time 1-0. Another classic 24-25 performance, gifting the opposition a goal. Crap. But what I will say is they obviously fight back. 2-2, and the player that comes on and helps and sparks the fight back is a player called Tom Bloxham. Now, I am a nerd when it comes to this sort of thing. Tom Bloxham was the player that was on loan at Morecambe when they knocked us out the FA Cup, and he was outstanding. I really do like the look of him. So it's like every team, they are might be one of the weaker teams in League One, but every team in League One can win a game on any given Saturday, as they proved when they beat Birmingham City. They will get better under Gareth Ainsworth. I don't think they'll get good enough in order to avoid relegation. If I'm entirely honest, I think that this is a long-term project for Gareth, that he will be rebuilding them as he built Wickham up from the lower reaches or from League Two. But it certainly isn't going to be a walkover. It's a difficult place to go and play, Shrewsbury, and I've seen us have some stinkers there. There was the League Cup game, I think, where Lass came on at right back and we drew and went out on penalties. I think Max Sanders missed. I saw a game where we lost 1-0 where Daniel Uddo smashed Adam Jackson and concussed him for the third time in the year. There's been games where there's been red cards. It always seems a tough journey. It's a nice ground, but it's not a nice ground for a supporter because it's out on a limb in the middle of nowhere, and it's Boxing Day. And we have been atrocious on Boxing Day. Probably my favourite Boxing Day memory was a 4-0 win against Swansea, I think, Fulham. 4-0 win against Fulham back in about 1995. So you have to go back nearly 30 years for me to have a fond Boxing Day memory.
Yeah, another one that jumps out is it was actually a win. We won 1-0 at Shrewsbury. I think it was last season, but while Mark Kennedy was still in charge, Ethan Hamilton scored. Probably the worst season I've ever seen. It was a horrific game of football. Obviously, we came out on the right side of it, but it was a rubbish game of football. It really was horrible. So, yeah, it's not a particularly happy hunting ground for us, is it, in the league? It hasn't been for a while. But and I really want Gareth Ainsworth to be successful, but I'd quite like him to wait until the new year. That's all right.
Now, in games between Lincoln and Shrewsbury, this is interesting. If you find things like this interesting. We've won 19 of our league games against Shrewsbury, and they've won 19 of their league games against us. So, yeah, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah. What I will say is obviously different manager now at Shrewsbury, but the 3-0 victory at home against Shrewsbury last season, in my opinion, was our most complete performance and our best performance of the whole season. We dominated them for 90 minutes across the whole pitch. So I would love something else like that again, please. That would be lovely. But I fully expect them to not try and play quite as much football as they tried to that night under Mr. Ainsworth.
Yeah, the game I remember was really bad as well. It was a 1-1 draw. I'm just looking at it now. January 2020. Ollie Norburn scored a penalty for them and Tyler Walker scored a penalty for us. I just remember it just being a turgid game of football. I really do. So,
do you want to do, I know you don't like predictions, but do you want to do a prediction for this one since it's Christmas?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. You can do one, but I don't like predictions.
3-0 win.
All right. I tell you what, you've gone 3-0 win, so I'll just go higher or lower. I'll just go lower. So there we go.
Are you going to go for a win or win, draw, or loss? Is all you need to say.
It don't matter. Lower.
Commit to one of them.
A loss is lower than a 3-0 win. A 2-0 win is lower than a 3-0 win. So I've covered quite a few bases. Unless we win 4-0 or more, I've basically got it. I'll go for a 2-1 win. Go for a 2-1 win. Because we've slagged off John Marquis, he will score. Almost absolutely certain. But you say they concede 2 goals a game. At the minute, we score 2 goals a game. So I'll even go with scorers. I will take your prediction and I will raise it. Bailey Cadamarteri and Jovan Makama to get the goals.
Oh, I like that. I'm not going
to because Bailey's on. He's on fire, and a fox in the box type striker actually does thrive on scoring goals. And we saw it with Joe Taylor last year. Once you get 1 or 2, it's habit forming if you're the right type of player. It's never going to be for like a Tendai Derico. He gets 2 against Wickham. He's not then going to go out and get them again and again and again. But if you're a striker, your only job is the scoring goals. Not if you're not like a Makama striker who works and. Bailey Cadamarteri is a goal-scoring striker. And people laugh at me when I say that, but Jovan's not a goal-scoring striker. He's a different type of striker. Ben House isn't just a goal-scoring striker. They have more to their game. But Bailey Cadamarteri, whilst he does, is a goal-scoring striker. He's got 3 and 3. I'm backing him to have 5 and 5 by New Year. He'll get one at Bolton.
Well. He's gone from no predictions at all to a 2-1 prediction.
I'm easily led.
The scores in the next game. And also picking a scorer for the game after. I love that. That's fantastic.
I'm easily led. Right, so we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I do also have an interesting little bit of a little tidbit. So the Rotherham game on New Year's Day, I am back down at pitch side pre-game. Now they do the magic moments thing, and obviously I'm kind of doing something around that. But it only dawned on me yesterday who we're playing.
Of course.
And Steve Evans and I have a long ongoing battle that he doesn't know about and I do. And it's going to be literally the closest I've ever been to Baron Greenback. Now, I was looking at him giving his interview the other day, and I was trying to work out what he might smell like when he walks past. And I think that's a question I'd like to put to you right now at the end of the podcast. What do we think Steve Evans will smell like? And I have a prediction. I think he will smell a little like boiled cabbage.
I think this is one just for the comments below, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. What does Steve Evans smell like? Answers in the comments below, and I will try and sniff him on New Year's Day. Wow, there's a sentence I didn't think I was going to say on the podcast.
That's a clip for you, Stu.
I will sniff Steve Evans. Anyway, so there we go. That was episode 343 of the Stacey West Podcast, and it was our festive episode. You will note this purely by the date and not by anything that we have done throughout the show, because we've literally done nothing around Christmas. We will be back at some point between Christmas and New Year. I haven't got the rotor in front of me, but I think we're doing something between Shrewsbury and Bolton. But in the meantime, it falls upon me just to wish everybody watching, everybody listening, and everybody who interacts with the Stacey West Podcast and site a massive, massive Merry Christmas. I really hope that you all have a wonderful festive period. Your support is absolutely invaluable. Without you, we would just be 2 people talking about Lincoln. We'd still be doing it, but nobody would be listening. And it's always nice to be listened to. So we do appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. And on that note, I think we'll just say, up the imps.
Up the imps.